now look at why conversations can go wrong and what we can do to avoid some of the common mistakes that we make. In Failure to Communicate, How Conversations Go Wrong and What You Can Do to Right Them, Holly Weeks identifies 9 common mistakes we tend to make. Here we go. First up is we fall into combat mentality. For instance, the manager might say, "You're supposed to be entering them all onto the system for goodness sake." And the employee might respond, "I thought Paul was putting them on the system." And the manager responds, "No, that's your job." We must remember the real enemy here is not the other person, but your own combat mentality. Instead of trying to beat an opponent, aim instead of a win-win solution where everyone benefits in some way. Rather, the manager can respond like, "I've noticed that there seems to be a backlog of purchase orders on a Monday morning. Is there anything you can do to clear them on the preceding Friday, perhaps?" Next up is we try to oversimplify the problem. Don't just give the first general simple solution you can think of. For instance, the manager that has the employee that has a back problem says, "We can get one of those ergonomic chairs. They will sort your back out. They're great." Often the problem that you see is often the symptom of other deeper issues. So it's important to find out just what these are. If you don't, any solution you find will only be temporary. Rather, the manager can say or ask, "Is there another reason that you don't want to come back to the office? Is something bothering you in the office?" And wait for a response. Next mistake is we don't have enough respect. For instance, while restructuring, the manager says, "Basically, everything is up for grabs." And the employee responds, "I'm sorry, what do you mean everything is up for grabs? Are some jobs going? What's happening?" And the manager responds, "Yeah, well, some positions are going to have to go, but there will be a couple of new roles as well." Respect the problem you are trying to resolve and the person or people involved. Rather, the manager can say, "I'm afraid we are going to have to get rid of some positions, but we are also going to be creating some new roles as well. So there will be new opportunities." And the next mistake, we let our emotions get the better of us. For instance, the manager says, "Oh, there you are. Managed to get out of bed, did you? I need to see you, 30 minutes, in the boardroom." Instead, take the middle ground. State what you really want and focus on the outcome you really want to achieve. Rather, the manager can say, for instance, "I just want to have a quick chat with you, Jack, to make sure you were settling in okay and that everything was going all right." The next mistake, we allow ourselves to be manipulated. For instance, the manager says, "Whatever problems you two have, got to stay at the door, okay?" And the employee falls silent and starts tearing up. And the manager responds by saying, "Oh, come on, Karen, don't go all quiet on me. You know I don't like that." It's easy to be tempted to fight fire with fire like this. But the best option is to first identify the ploy and then disarm your counterpart by addressing it head on. Rather, the manager can respond with boundaries, not allowing the silence to manipulate. They can say, "I don't know how to interpret your silence, Karen. I can either draw my own conclusions or you can explain things to me." The next mistake, we react when someone finds our weak spot. For instance, in restructuring, the employee says, "If I don't get my old job back, what then? Is there somewhere else I can move in the company?" And feeling overwhelmed with the intense response, the manager says, "I have no idea." It could be our social background, our professional standing in the company, or a skill that we lack. Whatever your weak spot, recognize it. And then do your best not to react when someone recognizes it. In this example, rather take courage as manager and speak the truth firmly, saying, "It's been a bit of a tough time for the business, to be honest, but it's not all doom and gloom. There are going to be new opportunities, especially for people who have a good understanding of social media marketing, like yourself." And the next mistake we do is we over-rehearse. For instance, the manager says, "It's basic restructuring. It happens all the time." And the employee respond, "I can't believe this. I can be out of a job and you call it basic restructuring. So while it's a good idea to prepare in advance, don't be too descriptive. If the employee says, is it going to be last in, first out? Be honest. Rather, the manager can add, no, not at all. We are going to be taking a completely objective approach. We just want to get the best fit for each job. I know you only joined recently, but we've been very impressed with what you have done so far. And then, mistake 8, we make assumptions. The manager might say, look, I'm just repeating what I've heard, but Sue said you've been picking on her a bit. The employee might say, I've been what? You assuming that Karen has been picking on Sue because of her slack in performance is not going to solve the issue. Try to find out how your counterpart sees the problem. Asking questions can be a good way of engaging your counterpart and getting a difficult conversation back on track. Rather, you as the manager can say, Karen, if you have any concerns about Sue's performance, would you mind telling me rather? And Karen might say, I don't want to come running telling tales. And you as manager can say, Karen, as a senior member of the team, you're supposed to raise any legitimate concerns you have about staff performance. Would you be able to do this going forward? And then last but not least, mistake 9. We lose sight of our goal. The employee with a back problem might say, maybe I could start doing some work from home. I wouldn't have to drive in, and I can get up and move around a bit. The manager might respond, right, I will see what Grant says. But the key in any difficult conversation is to remember what you are trying to achieve and not get sidetracked. If the employee says, maybe I could start doing some work from home, I've got a computer here and I can work at the kitchen table. The manager can rather respond and say, I don't see how that's going to help your back. You will still be sitting down and it won't be any different. And the employee might respond, you've got to let people work from home, please. It's the law. And with that push, the manager can respond back by saying, it's not quite right, Livy. Yes, you can request some home working, but I don't see how much that is going to help your back. So you can see the manager kept to the point, but also being kind around it. Remember that dealing with sensitive issues is a skill we can and need to develop by practicing often. Reflect on the common mistakes that you might be making and see how you can already adjust these in your next difficult conversation.